We're back again. So, in the last video, I was saying that episode 2 is going to be a history lesson on expressive individualism, and that is the plan. And the way it's going to work, I'm going to look at some of the writings of an individual from 4 different eras leading up to where we are now. So somebody from medieval times, somebody from the Enlightenment period, the Romantic period, and early modern, so closer to where we are now. And as we were seeing in the last video, expressive individualism and individualism itself are more recent inventions. So when we're looking at times before that, we're going to adjust our goal a little bit. Center for morality and life goal, life prioritization, life purpose. We'll be looking from that lens. So the medieval ages were a colorful time in our history. There was a lot of killing and a lot of bad thinking and evil doings on the pretext of religion. With that being said, there were also religious thinkers that were moving us forward and had a better spin on things that wasn't just for money or power or political gain. One such thinker towards the later part of the medieval times, who apparently has had a pretty big impact on our thinking today, is Thomas Aquinas. This guy did a lot of writing and has quite a bit to say in his thousands of written pages. But we're not going to look at all of that. We're going to look at his theory of natural law and how it pertains to what we've been discussing so far. Before we go any further, I will say Aquinas' theories come from a theological background, as he himself was a theologian, so any closed-minded folks out there, here's your spoiler warning to dip now. But his natural law theory stems from the idea that everything has a rational purpose and plan, and something is good if it fulfills that purpose or plan. So completely different from the idea of expressive individualism and self-actualization. So Aquinas states, something is good in as far as it fulfills its purpose or plan. For example, a good eye is one which sees well. An acorn is good if it grows into a strong oak tree. And this reasoning extended to humans to answer, what is our purpose? What are we good for? He thinks the answer is being able to reason. That is the distinction from other creatures, other things. If we act according to reason, we are partaking in this natural law. He also makes the point that this reason that we act on is not something that is relative. What is right for someone is right for everyone. And the way it's put in this article, we will all agree to some overarching general rules. These are absolute and binding on all rational agents. So the next stop on our timeline is the Enlightenment period, which is a European intellectual movement emphasizing reason, individualism, and scientific inquiry. And who better to look at in this than John Locke and Thomas Hobbes, who are both toying with the idea of natural law, similar to our homie Thomas Aquinas, but different in its outline and what it aims to accomplish, that sort of thing. So Thomas Hobbes' view of natural law was in direct contrast to that of Thomas Aquinas, and it looks like John Locke as well. Hobbes himself rejects any metaphysical or God-deriving reasoning as a foundation for reliable conduct, but he also paints a not so positive picture of the human experience, and there's probably some truth in this as well. Hobbes' model shows that human beings are selfish, competitive, and antisocial, and that they are rational only insofar as reason serves these selfish passions. People are only objects in motion, and the natural equality of all human beings is the right to avoid death or to preserve one's life. Now, John Locke, on the other hand, his views do come from a metaphysical foundation. So, between the two, Hobbes says everybody acts in the interest of self-preservation and has no connection to one another outside of that priority. Whereas John Locke says everybody has rights to personal property, pursuing your own interests, things of that nature, to the degree that they remain within your circle. They don't infringe upon anyone else. So the Enlightenment age gave us John Locke, who gave us the foundations for personal freedom, liberties, individual rights, and limited government so that people can pursue what they want. The next, drawing heavy inspiration from the French Revolution, was the Romantic Age, or the Romantic period. And thinkers in this time took some steps away from the logic and reason in the previous era and more towards emotion and insights derived from the self in those emotions. The person we're going to focus on, though, during this time period is Ralph Waldo Emerson. Emerson was one of the main proprietors of a new idea called transcendentalism. Transcendentalism, which makes the case that people are inherently good, and rather than reason, people should be acting on intuition, deep truths that are found through self-reflection. And finding that inner voice, you are to act on it and think independently from society, which sounds pretty close to what we're looking at with expressive individualism. So to pick apart this idea of his in his essay, Self-Reliance, there's a central belief. Truth lies in our spontaneous, involuntary intuitions. That sounds a lot like expressive individualism. And this idea connected a lot with young people, specifically in their aim and seeking connection with God. As it's put in this article, according to these preachers and writers, we could connect with divinity and understand those symbols, that is to say, transcend or rise above the material world, simply by accepting our own intuitions about God, nature, and experience. These insights, they argued, needed no external verification. The mere fact that they flashed across the mind proved that they were true. So there you have it. a basis for the ideology that we're looking at now. Heavy on the ideas flashing in your mind and becoming self-evident. And for our last historical look, now stepping into the modern era, we won't touch on Robert Bellah because we covered him so much in the previous video. Instead, we'll look at Carl Rogers, whose theory surrounded self-actualization, brought that to the forefront. And the key takeaways from his theories are very nicely outlined for us in this one article. First finding, subjective experience. Reality is perceived subjectively. Each person's unique experience of the world shapes their behavior more than objective reality. That is directly in line with the idea of expressive individualism. Your perception is clearer than reality. Okay, actualizing tendency. Takeaway 2 from his studies. Every individual has an inherent tendency to grow, develop, and fulfill their potential when the right conditions are present. Unconditional positive regard. People thrive when they receive acceptance, love, and respect without conditions. That idea has been going a little crazy the past few decades, and we can touch on that in the next video. And congruence. Well-being depends on congruence, a close match between an individual's self-image and their actual experience. Taken a step further, failure to express your authentic self leads to anxiety and inner conflict. Well, that covers all the time frames and people we wanted to look at. In our next video, we'll look at the state of the world. We've seen some shifts, at least in thinking, up to now. Now we're going to look at the impact of that thinking and what it's done to the lives of us living in the 21st century. All right, I'll see you then. Goodbye.